Hello guys, I added the feature moving platforms to the Unity low poly game kit, and here I want to show you how I did this using Blender. Okay, this is Blender 2.82, and here we have a very simple low poly terrain part. It has 3 colors, 2 brown tones and a green tone, but it has just one texture and material. Okay, so let's have a look at the texture that I created. It contains some 16 by 16 pixel color squares, and I mapped the resized UV islands to these color squares. Here the green ones, they are all mapped to this green color square, and these ones, for example, to a brown color square. And this is the technique that I use for texturing, because with this you can use the same material and the same texture for every mesh that you export to Unity, and you save many draw calls. To UV unwrap this low poly mesh, I just do a reset. I press U in edit mode and then I select reset. Now the UV islands have the same size. Of course they are too big, so I scale them down pressing the S key, and then I press the G key to move them to a color square. And then I can go ahead and select some faces, then press G to move the islands for the selected faces to a color. Okay, this is my texturing process, and now I export the model as FBX. I choose File, Export FBX, and export to the folder of my Unity project, the selected objects only, the mesh, and I select Apply Transform. This is the file name that I want to use for the object, and then I press Export FBX. Alright, so let's open Unity, the low poly game kit project. Here we have the terrain part that we exported, and the material is already assigned. It's a very simple one. I just use an albedo, a diffuse image, and this is of course the same one that we used in Blender. Here you can see the material, matte low poly, and to the albedo slot, the image of the Blender project that we used for UV mapping is assigned. And that's it. I used the same image for all the meshes in the project. Okay, but we want to create a moving platform, so let's add some components. First of all, we need a collider, so that the character can stand on this platform, and I use a mesh collider. After that, I add a C# script that I already implemented, but I will explain this later on. Basically, you can use this script to define the speed of the movement and the locations where the platform should start and stop. That's it. Now I drag this game object to a prefabs folder so that we can reuse it. Okay, now let me show you how to use this prefab. You can drag it now from the prefabs folder into your scene. I made 2 platforms, different meshes, but the same logic. Now I drag this into the scene, and then we have to define at least 2 positions. The first one where the platform should start moving, and when it reaches the second location it should return to the first one. You can use any game object you like for this. I use an empty game object. This object defines the start location, so I rename this to start, and I use a gizmo for this so that we can see it better in the scene view. The same I do for the second location. I add an empty game object, or I duplicate this one, and then I rename this to end. Okay, now we have 2 locations. I select the platform, and then I drag these game objects to the element slots of the script. That was easy. Now we can start and jump onto this platform by pressing spacebar. And the player is attached to the platform. We can move around and again jump off the platform. Okay, so let's make this look a bit more interesting and drag some game assets into the scene. Nice, now the player can move onto the platform from this terrain part. And now you could add something dangerous below the platform, like fire or water, crocodiles, who knows. What else can you do? You can increase the speed of the moving platform to make it more difficult for the player to land on it. As you can see, to time the jump is a bit more tricky. And this game logic is implemented in a C# script, so let's have a look at this. The class is named movingPlatform and it is assigned to the movingPlatform game object. It has a speed variable, a public transform array to define the positions for the platform, and a private player. If this is assigned, then we know that the player is attached to the platform. Okay, in this method we get the current target from the positions array and the mCurrentIndex is used for this. The moving direction of the platform is defined by the location of the current target, and when this is reached, the index is incremented so that we are moving to the next transform, the next target in the positions array. When the last target is reached, the current index is set to 0 so that we start again with the first one. Okay, now we check if the mPlayer variable is assigned. If it is not, null. And then we set an external movement property of the player controller to the move direction of the platform. I will explain this in a moment. In the end, I set the position of the platform to the current move direction. But when is the player assigned? This is done in the onTriggerEnter method, when the player's trigger is entering the collider of the platform. It could be any collider that is entering here, so I check if it is really the player controller. And then I also check if the current location of the player is somewhere above the platform center. This is not perfect, but it works. Okay, if both is true, I assign the colliding player to the mPlayer variable, then we know that the player is attached, and when the player is leaving the platform, onTriggerExit, I set the external movement property to 0 again and the mPlayer to null. Now what's about this external movement property? Let's have a look at the player controller script. It has an external movement member variable that is by default 0, and the player has a character controller that uses the move method to define in which direction the player is moving. But now I also take the external movement into account in the lateUpdate method, that is called after the update method, so that the player is moving in the direction of the platform as well. And this is how I implemented moving platforms for the Unity Low Poly Game Kit. The link can be found in the description below, check it out if you like it. And if you like this channel, then don't forget to subscribe, follow me on my Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, support me as my patron, and I see you soon in the next one.